get that I felt that I could use, because I knew that some of the data sets that I was coming across didn't have current data. Problem with that is that it gave me the complete every store in Harris County that accepted the food stamp card, which happened to be over 3,100 entries. They included convenience stores, grocery stores, pharmacies, dollar stores, basically anywhere where you could get groceries of some sort. I wanted to concentrate on just grocery stores because it included the vegetables, the meats, frozen items, as well as canned goods. So it encompassed the whole gambit instead of just a portion of a subset of the data that I was, of the food that I was looking for. Say, you can go to a convenience store and get you a Coke and some chips, but you may not be able to go and find you some Cokes, chips, and an apple. I wanted to be able to have that whole range instead of just narrowing it down. I had to parse out basically 300 plus items or data entries in my data set to come up with a data set that I could use instead of having everything. I just parsed it down to quite a bit. And my data set wound up looking like this. And, like I said, it had Walgreens and Valero's and everything like that. And you go all the way up to 378 grocery stores in the Harris County alone, which happened to be the top of my list. I added this entry right here to show what was a full grocery store and which wasn't, so that I can at least look at it, make it easier for me to create my data set. Okay. Once I did that, I was able to get my facilities and load those into my facilities list to generate that. I had to then create my network statistics, or network, let me make sure I get this labeled correctly, the properties for the closest facilities. And what I had to do there on this right here, when I set it up, I had to set, this was my radius that I was going to use for the queries that I was doing. I did a 2 mile, a 5 mile, and a 7.5 mile radius. When I did a 1 mile radius, I got no results. And I thought that was kind of strange, because I know that there's I knew of 2 stores that were fairly close to where we live, but they were just over 1 mile. So what I did is I changed this to 2 miles instead of 1 mile, so that I could get some data in my first query. And when I did that, I wound up having something that looked like this. This is the complex right here, and these are the 2 stores that I was talking about, the Foodorama and the ATB. Those are within 2 miles. It's actually a little over 1 mile from my house, or my apartment complex. And then this La Michoacana, yeah, I've never been there, but it's a little bit over a mile as well. It's not that much further from one. It's 1.5 miles away from where I live. This list shows all the stores in the miles from the apartment from the complex I live in. And it says as short as a little over 1 mile down to 7.47 miles away. My original idea for this was to be 1, 5, and 10 miles away. But whenever I started doing the queries, especially after the second one, and I wound up having 34 entries, I knew that if I continued with the 10 miles, I would have an overload of data that wouldn't help anybody. So I reduced the query down to 7.5 miles instead of 10, to just make things a little bit easier and not have an overload of data. The 5 mile query, go ahead, wound up with 34 different stores, and I was expecting to see some stores over here in that as well, but obviously they're not. They're at 6 miles. These particular stores over here are 6 miles, so it was a little bit further than I was expecting it to be. Interesting project. Okay. The interesting project in that if you wanted to find what your closest grocery store, you could do this, or you can just go out there and venture out and see what you could find. Which that's how I knew where the first two were to begin with. So you could look at it one of two ways: is if you're coming into a new area and you wanted to find your closest grocery stores, you could use something similar to this process that I did, or here that I showed you, that you could do and find out where that. I was somewhat surprised at the length of how far away stores were from this complex. If you were on foot carrying your groceries, you're looking at over a 2 mile walk just to get your groceries from your house from your house to the store and back. That seems a bit far when you start looking at the fact that Harris County is such a large county and it's very populous. We have over, I believe it's now 8 million people in the Metroplex. I just felt I just thought that was a long way to go to get there. Guess that's it. I would say it's time for questions, but you can't ask me no questions, so I guess that's it. Thanks.